It does. Yeah.
It didn't give me a countdown. We
Oh,
might be live now.
all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cut the Cheese Poke the Bear live stream event for Pending Rebrand's 500 subscriber celebration. We are not there yet. We're at 498 subscribers, which means you and your friend next to you could be the 499th and 500th subscriber if you click that subscribe button now.
Do it.
If you hit that button and you are 500, hit us up in the chat, live chat. We will call you out right here and now, and you will be celebrated amongst pending rebrand history. For this live event, we will be playing on Battle.net StarCraft 2, a game we both know, love, and enjoy, and have been playing for what, a better part of 20 years, 30
Yes.
years if you want to count the original StarCraft. Love this game. Great game for just stomping some comps, as we like to say. We are
Yes.
not competitive players.
No.
It is not something we normally do on the channel. So while we're playing, as we're dealing with the stress of what's going on in the battles, we're also going to be talking NFL football, cut the cheese, poke the bear style. We'll probably be talking a little bit of warp core material and a little bit of the Graying Jedi material and beyond the pending rebrand mainstays that you know and love, and a bit of a vision for the future as we crest over that 500 subscriber mark. So, Lord Uther, thank you for joining with me as always. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to get this stream out to our loving fan base on Facebook. So if you are a Facebook follower of ours, first of all, thank you. And if you are one of our loyal fans on other social media platforms and or Spotify, welcome. We appreciate having you, and definitely look forward to everything we got going on tonight. So, Eric, why don't you give us an update? What are your Chicago Bears doing, man? I mean, it seems like a mess out there.
It's not what are they doing, it's what aren't they doing. That had to have been one of the slowest football games ever on Thursday night. And then
I
at the
think I fell
end,
asleep twice.
when the game ended and we somehow won, everyone was hugging each other on the sideline like we just won the Super Bowl. Like they're hugging Eberflus. It just I felt a little, I just watching that was making me ill. To see that go on. But supposedly or allegedly, there's a chance that Justin Fields will be starting against Detroit, and it still won't matter. We'll get creamed by them as well, and then we see you on Thanksgiving Day. Am I correct? Or is that no? That's
No,
Christmas. It's the end of the
we
year.
play at the very end of the year, the last game of the season, which
Oh,
at
that's right.
the beginning of the season felt like it was going to mean a lot. Feels now like it might not mean anything. So, I mean, between the Chicago Bears playing the way they're playing and the way the Green Bay Packers have been playing this season, I gotta say I'm not too optimistic for either team's chance to make the playoffs. Although I think the Packers have a better chance, all things
Yeah.
considered. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I watched the game against the Panthers, and much as I enjoy watching, the Chicago Bears. Oh, I should probably invite you to my party here
Yeah, that
before I
would be
start.
nice. I'd like to play as well.
We're all pros at this game. Let's see. You are Admiral Kirk, correct?
Yes, I am.
Admiral Kirk, not just
At
Captain Kirk, but we're
Admiral.
going straight up Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
That's right.
Um,
Admiral.
I hope you got that invite. It's been a while.
There we go.
There we go. All right, good deal. Yeah, so I mean, I watched the game, and I kid you not, I know for sure I fell asleep at least once. Because the Panthers, I also expected to be somewhat decent this year. I even had Bryce Young on my fantasy team last week,
No.
and he threw two picks. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, it again, there was talk down here too about Bryce Young and how does he stack up against Fields. I just don't think you can make that case. There's also talk of obviously letting Fields play so we can figure out. Well, there's two ways to look at it, right? Figure out if he's a long term solution, or you want to let him play, and if he does well, now you can trade him.
Right.
So in that fifth year. So there's been some of that thought going around too. Look, Bajent is a very nice backup quarterback when he needs to come in for a half, maybe for one game, maybe. But his arm strength just isn't there. His release is great. I actually think it's nice and quick. I think he makes some decent decisions, but you
Yeah.
got to have some arm strength to go along with that. And I even messaged you guys, I think, or maybe my buddy Scott and Keith were at the game. If they threw one more wide receiver screen
What was up with that? Like,
with no with that weak arm who can't get it there fast enough. Just my thoughts on the wide receiver screen. I can't stand it. But now
right.
you're going to throw it with that weak, with his weak arm and not get it there fast enough, and you get tackled 5 yards behind the line.
I still don't I don't understand that naked screen. I've never I mean I've seen it executed well and occasionally it goes for 7-8 yards. I don't know that I've ever seen it break for a big gain. I don't know that I've ever seen it, maybe if you're throwing at the 5 yard line, you might get a touchdown off that play, but I saw the Packers run it a lot the year that Rodgers was, I think, first playing after Favre, and I was like, what are they doing? Like, this is not the Packers team at all. Mike McCarthy
Well,
loved those little dink and doink plays, and they never really worked.
it worked well in '98 with Marty Booker, or maybe it was 2000 with Marty Booker and Jim Miller. Like that's the last time it worked well. So
And
I don't get it.
and even then, did it work that well? Because I mean, just listen to the names you're dropping.
Oh, Marty Booker, we had a couple of stud years.
Marty Booker
Here,
was good, but Jim Miller, I mean,
oh boy, I have to play and talk at the same time.
yeah, this
Everyone,
is
you're
gonna
going
be
to
fun.
notice that, I struggle just a little bit. I don't know how these pro gamers do the things they do, clicking all over the map and everything. I don't even want to. Can't look at the streamer; it's going to throw me off. Um,
This is the fun of a live show right here, folks. You are getting treated to
oh, they can only see
premium
your
content.
screen, huh? Yeah, that's right. I'd have to be right next to you,
Boy,
which is fine.
I'm trying to remember the controls. It's been so long. We've been playing so much Diablo in our free time that it's just been like it's kind of a learning curve almost again. I mean, now granted, like we said at the beginning, top of the show here, we've been playing StarCraft for what, 30 years? I mean,
Oh yeah.
this is like not just a classic game for us, but it's absolutely, oh, I don't know. I mean, probably classic for a lot of people around the world at this point. And I mean, it's a little mind blowing to think we've been playing this so long that it's not as automatic as you'd think. I do
Right.
regret that in this live stream, I'm sharing my screen. At some point, we should see maybe in between games if we can share off to your screen because it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see the differences in play style.
No one wants to see my screen.
Right. So, question for you. Back to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah,
You're
Bears.
let's put you in the shoes of that front office. Now, you've got a team that's, I think at this point it's painfully obvious you're not going to make the playoffs, but you've got a huge investment right now that's looming. You want a new stadium, you want to bring people in, you want to attract investors, and you're real married to the Chicagoland area. What do you do as an owner, as an operator, to kind of not just bolster the activity, and bring in new blood, new season ticket holders, but bottom line is you want to bring in everybody. You want to bring in not just fans, but competitive players that are going to be the future of your franchise. How do you make them feel like this is a worthwhile place for them to go? Frankly,
If we just start with the stadium, where they're going to build it and it having multi purposes, whether it's for the McCaskey family or someone else, it's going to be in the perfect spot, and everything they're going to put there is going to draw attention, right? It's going to draw people. It's going to draw concerts, NCAA tournament, like their basketball tournament. There's a lot of things that I think can happen there. I actually think our defense is something that's going to come along now. I think the trade for was that Sweat? Is that his name?
I think it was Sweat. Yeah,
Yeah, the trade for him. At first they were saying how it wasn't going to work out, but it really looks like it's something that could be good for the Bears. I think they're going to pay Brisker because I think he was the one that wanted the. I'm trying to do two things at once, so I can't remember if it was Brisker or not. Um,
Sure.
that's the wrong button already. See, uh, so I they got to get a new head coach. I was talking with some guys at school today, and they were saying, you know what though, like they're saying supposedly that all the players are still buying into Eberflus, and I said, yeah,
That's
until they
crazy
don't
to me.
anymore. It's only going to take one thing. It's not like he's built up. Look, I always believe you build up brownie points. What I don't know what to click next. Brownie points with your with your players. I mean, yeah, you want to treat them right. You want to build their confidence, all those things, but you want to have some of that stuff almost in the bank. So if
Yeah.
you've got to do certain things, you're still going to have their respect, right? They're still
Sure.
going to want to play for you.
I think that
We
stands
haven't
to reason.
won. We haven't won, or we've barely won, and that does not. I, again, I think that's only going to go so far. They're only going to buy
Sure.
into it so much. Um, oh,
Reasonable.
I you know so. Wait, did I click the wrong thing? All right, I'm good. Uh, you know, I would take these next couple weeks to figure out if you're going to keep Fields. I mean,
Yeah.
is that the right move? Um, I just don't. I don't see it now. I'm not that much of a football guy unless I'm playing StarCraft and talking about it. Um, but from my armchair quarterback perspective, I don't see it in him. But I also think sometimes it takes a couple of years, and I'm not sold on Caleb Williams now. That's the problem. Like he's done a couple things at USC that you're asking yourself, is this guy going to be successful in the NFL? Is
Sure.
he, is that a good move for the Bears? I just, you don't, I think quarterback is the toughest thing in terms of knowing, right? I just think there's
Yeah.
so much that goes into question. And I think it depends on the system um, as well.
Hmm.
So I guess the next question too is, are you going to bring in, uh, well, it was nice knowing you. Uh,
Oh, you're getting hit already. Oh, no.
Help anyone out there. Why am I not? No, come on.
Oh, man. That's just poor luck because I got nothing right now.
I might. No, 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 don't do that. Don't do that. Oh my. Guess where I'm going.
It's no shame having to scan off to another base.
Yeah, yours.
You know,
So,
I think there's might as well roll into the Packers in this too because there's definitely talk in Green Bay. Is Jordan Love the guy? And I didn't. The last thing you want to hear, deep into, what's a bad season, right? Oop, here I'll lower this down. Deep in what's a bad season, like you don't want to hear people saying, "Oh, we need a new quarterback," and it's like, well, heck, man, we put so much time into this guy and effort and energy now. Boy, you're hard pressed, I think, to suddenly change your mind on him. You know what I mean? Like, you almost
right.
have to give him another year to prove himself. And I'm not saying it's necessarily unfair. That's not, you know, it's not what I'm saying at all. I would say, I think at some point you got to say, hey, we got to kind of cut our losses too, frankly. But how much time do you give a guy before you say, you know what, you were the wrong choice? And I don't know, was he the wrong choice? That's the other thing is I don't think he's had really enough time with as young a team as is around him. I don't think he's had enough time necessarily to say for sure this is the wrong person. We need, new blood, new material, to kind of take his spot, right? And that to me is is the real rub here, because a lot of people I think are quick to say, oh, time to go in a different direction at quarterback, and it's just, to me, it's almost like amusing to think like you're giving up that quick, like really, of all the times to give up, you're basically giving them not even halfway through the season, and people were already talking, oh, this guy's got to go, this guy's got to go, and it's like I just don't see how you can justify that. Frankly, it's not been good. I'm not gonna sing the guy's praises or nothing, but I can't necessarily complain about what we have seen out of Jordan Love. I think he's had flashes of greatness, and that to me is certainly something to write home about. I think of Aaron Rodgers' first year, and certainly Brett Favre's first year. It's not like we suddenly were going to the Super Bowl every year. There were a
Right.
lot of years that we were still nobodies. And I'm not saying the Packer fans are quick to forget our years and years of irrelevance, but sometimes I think after 30 years of back-to-back Hall of Famers, you have to take just about everything you hear with a pretty good grain of salt.
I think it's too early. I don't think you can. Um, I don't think that
Oh
you can.
boy.
Uh-oh. Can I repair your stuff? I can.
Shoot. My siege tanks can't even. Whew, yikes. This is not good. This is not good at all.
It goes too.
A ghost, too? Holy crap. Man, these guys get moving quick.
Well, and we're trying to talk.
Right. I was going to. Well, I don't know. I feel like I was coming along at a decent
It,
clip
it,
there.
you were actually doing, yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's legit. It was. I have seen better days, I'd say.
Let's see what I can do here. Probably nothing.
All right, let's.
Okay, here we go.
I think my biggest Achilles in this game is always not having enough Vespine gas. I don't know why that is. Um,
Well, it's always, I always think that's the short one out of all of them. Is the best being. Oh, you held him off.
for the time being, I will take it.
Yeah, this is gonna. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if I can take this gold down here.
Kind of makes me wonder, like, where did they suddenly disappear off to?
Someone might have been. The other team might have been attacking them.
Well, it looked like they were working together, which they should be. They're on the same
Oh,
team.
you teamed them up against us.
Yeah, I mean, well, back in the day, when
I
that
can
used to
handle
be a
5 of
gas
them.
station over there.
Yeah,
I
so
can't remember, like, what was the greatest difficulty in this game we ever faced down successfully? I'm
I
trying to
thought we,
remember.
I thought we went to like the hardest level, but just against one,
Yeah, I want to say that was the case.
and that was even tough. I think it was at least 2 of us playing, if not 3.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so this weekend we've got another Warp Core podcast coming up, which is
Ah,
always
I watched it.
fantastic and exciting. I watched the episode today, one of the first of the 2 episodes today. Obviously, the second episode we're going to be talking about this weekend is going to be Space Seed, which, I mean, I don't think we even need to introduce that episode. It's so foundational to Star Trek. But when you think of Star Trek, how far back do you go when you first encountered Trek?
Well, I was watching it. I remember watching it actually at my grandma's house, but it was TOS, so it was
Mhm.
And I think I said it the other day on the pod that first episode I saw was uh, not the one with the alien that freaks you out. I don't know why oh, you're getting attacked. See, this is throwing me off. Um, oh, they are working. Oh, we're done for there, dude. Yeah, there's no stopping that.
I don't know.
I think you got all right. Hey, man, an Urza Master we trust. So that's how I feel about that.
I mean, so far, okay. Anyway,
But one of the first episodes I saw, Balance of Terror, and then I remember seeing Space Seed. So, and watching Space Seed now again, I have so much to say about it because I know that Aaron was talking about how how Wrath of Khan was written, and I can see how they use that episode as the perfect springboard into Wrath of Khan, which to me, and now after watching Space Seed, definitely confirms that Wrath of Khan is my favorite Star Trek movie.
yeah.
Ever.
Oh yeah. I mean, the one thing
Has it all.
I always wonder about Space Seed because here's the thing. It's like in the episode, and I haven't rewatched it just yet. I mean, I will. We're toast here, but I always kind of wonder, like, where did they get this like conniving con? Like, I mean, we know who he is and all
I
that.
figured it
But,
out today.
oh, okay, all
I
right.
was
Well,
gonna share. I was gonna wait for the podcast, but if we want to do a spoiler,
we'll save this. We won't spoil the warp core. But I'm glad we were on the same page because I've always kind of wondered because Khan, of course, we've talked Star Trek too, unbelievable as a bad guy.
let's back into this.
Well, our first cut the cheese poke the bear has resulted in a miserable failure of a loss. Hey, what do you do? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yeah, or every time, but yes.
Right, or every time. But I was thinking about that today. It's like because I've watched Space Seed. I don't know throughout my lifetime because I like you remember watching at my grandma and grandpa's house. Syndication. I think TOS may have been first, but of course I came up when pretty much all of the big Star Trek shows were on television.
Right.
Next Gen, I think, was getting close to its conclusion on TV, and I'm pretty confident Deep Space Nine and Voyager were just starting. But TOS ran on TV forever. It's still running on TV. You can turn on
Yeah.
damn near any channel, and you're going to find Star Trek: The Next Generation, and or Star Trek TOS and Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, and DS9. I mean,
And DS9 and Voyager too.
we were talking the other day. That's one Pluto TV is pretty impressive because
Minus
not
the
only-
commercials, I love it.
you know, I can live with it just because I can get Showtime. Now it's only one channel, but you can get like old Showtime TV series and movies. HBO, I think they have an HBO channel. So I mean, there are channels that you can get, and they have specialized channels. MST3K, it drives my wife nuts because when I
Wow.
wasn't watching Star Trek, I was watching the MST3K 24-hour channel. Doesn't get any better than that. I mean,
Oh,
come
that's
on.
amazing. So wait, on those 24-hour channels, do they have commercials like they do if you go to just like Pluto TV
No,
online?
it's well, they might have added in before. It was just like just a break where it would say Pluto TV. Okay, I see where we're at.
So you kind of get that commercial experience that you would have gotten.
Yeah, no,
Watching
I think
back in the
they
day,
put a
right?
couple commercials in there now, but I don't mind for the content I get.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. They got to pay the bills somehow. It's a
Right.
business after all. But yeah, I've always thought like, why? I miss broadcast TV, and I'm probably the only person on earth who goes back to the days of syndicated broadcast television, and just I have this like unrequited joy in my memory of waking up like absurdly early because my dad has been in construction my whole life. And when I was young, like 7, 8 years old, and we, had moved into our own house, the two of us, I was up when he got up. Like I would sit down and we had that old big console TV,
Right.
not the ones with the dials, but the ones maybe 10 years later with like the first remotes. And we lived behind a hill. Now, kids these days don't appreciate living behind a hill with no antenna. You got like a channel if you were
Yep.
lucky. And we were fortunate. I think we got UPN, NBC, and Fox. And Fox only kind of came in, but like CBS, ABC didn't. We didn't get those at all. And Fox, I think, was also intermittent and dependent on the weather, which kids these days are going, huh?
Yeah.
What? But it was the era of broadcast television where I think maybe we got the TV guide, or maybe it was just like the free mailer because we didn't get the newspaper. So I just would like look at what was going to be on, but I had to memorize what came on when and on what channel.
Right.
Um, I mean, again, kids these days probably will never ever have to do the things I did to get enjoyment out of television. But sound like such a fuddy-duddy. Damn kids these days with their fancy televisions. But I do remember the joys of getting basic cable, which I don't even think basic cable exists anymore in the sense that it did back then, where you got, what, 12 channels, something like that.
Right.
And boy, I mean, maybe it was even less than that. But I remember getting UPN for the first time and watching at 5:30 in the morning on UPN. They started running Japanese animation cartoons, and I was
Okay.
8, maybe. No, I was probably 7. And they ran Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, and then they rolled into regular programming. But at 5 on NBC, they ran Star Trek TOS. And so I'd wake up, and not every day, but some days, if I was lucky, I would get treated to a couple episodes of, basically my big three growing up, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, Star Trek. And in that like economy of shows, I mean, it's something I mean, people fall in love with TV shows nowadays, but it's really not the same.
Right.
Like back then, you really had to be in love with the show to catch it every single time it was on. And that's no joke. Like, people who, and rest in peace, Matthew Perry. I was a big Friends fan, but we recently picked up Friends on Blu-ray, the entire series, and there are a lot of episodes. Until I marathoned it a few years ago, I had never seen before.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, wow, I don't remember this at all. Like I don't remember Gunther being a very big part of the show, but you go back and watch the show and it's like, wow, Gunther's in a lot of episodes and like
Hmm.
there's a lot of story about Gunther.
Oh, really?
And I always like the character, but I mean, your guess is as good as mine why I didn't know he was that involved with the show. But it's just cool to like, I don't know, have that experience. And I feel like it's lost. Again, I don't know that that's neither here nor there necessarily, like from a cultural standpoint. But, we talk about that on the podcast a lot where things like commercial breaks added tension, added, dramatic pause to a show that, I mean, frankly, when you don't have it these days, it kind of weakens the show overall, in my opinion, because I mean, to be frank, there's a lack of tension where it may have otherwise been, and now all of a sudden you're just getting this instant gratification. Doesn't really feel like it means as much.
And I
What are
would
your
argue,
feelings on that? Am I being a fuddy duddy or?
no, I would argue that we're going back to that because now, if you don't want to pay 15, 16, $18 a month, which I won't, you're going to start getting commercials. Like my Paramount Plus has commercials. My Netflix is going to have commercials. My Disney Plus is going to have commercials because I'm not paying them. I'm already paying all this extra money in subscription services. I'm not paying the extra just not to. I'll get up and I'll go like when we used to have commercials. I'll go get some water. I'll
Yeah.
go check my email. Like, okay, I can take a few minutes out. It's not a big deal. I'm not.
Yeah.
I know it may sound, what I mean, to keep that extra, especially now in the economies that we're having, extra $30 in my pocket. I'll keep the extra $30 in my pocket.
I mean, that's pretty legit if you think about it. Like and that's something I honestly I hadn't even thought about because it's almost a foreign concept at this point. Like the idea of, the couple bucks, is it really worth it? Right now, but as they do ratchet these prices up, and they're not going to drive me away because I still feel
Right.
like, I think Disney just went up to like 140 for the annual subscription. I still feel like I'm getting probably more bang for my buck than not.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Right.
so I'm fine. I got these roaches. It should be
I
fine.
I have a cruiser that's about to come out. If I can drop it if you need me to.
We'll see.
Oh, Vespine gas.
Just waiting for this reactor to fire up. There, I held them off. I just lost one little building I can easily replace. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we are kind of going back to it where, in the olden days of yore, you really did have no choice. And now that you have the choice, you really kind of make it. Like it's just one of those where it's like, I'm not forking over that kind of cash for, you know, whatever it is they're providing. It's not worth
Right.
it. Which, I mean, it's almost sad to say because, like, I do think there was a nice little era we had where it was totally worth it to, pay the extra couple bucks to get the purely commercial free content. I think that was pretty legit for a good long while there. But now that we're in that sequence of, well, you gotta pay for this and that, and it's like, man, that's not gonna happen. You know what I
Right.
mean? I mean, who am I to say? I guess I always talk a big game, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm also a little bit lazy, where it's like, for the fight, it's gonna be to, like, keep the kids engaged through commercials, and that's what I mean. Frankly, it does kind of boil down to is you've got to figure out how you're gonna justify having commercials with children, because that's what these streaming services are really for, is like, busy parents who are just trying to keep their kids intrigued. I think enough is a good way to look at it, to keep them from tearing the house apart. um,
Right.
and I mean, it's just legit. It's parenting nowadays. Like, you know my daughter watches Netflix and YouTube, and I mean, we monitor the amount of time she spends on those platforms, and the content certainly she consumes. But there's something to be said about the fact is, like, this is sort of the fact of life now. You kind of have to have this media exposure, kind of like back in the day. If you weren't watching whatever the hot show was, you were out of the loop with your friends. You were out of the loop with school, and that could really make you feel alienated.
It's so funny.
Uh,
'Cause thinking about that the other day, I remember kids in high school were watching Seinfeld, and I wasn't, and I had no idea what they were talking about
oh
half the time.
no,
And then,
yeah,
all these years later, I'm like, oh, I get it. Okay, I don't know what I was watching instead, but
yeah. What were you? Days of Our Lives, like.
I do. So I was a senior in high school. I got hooked on General Hospital
General
because
Hospital, no way.
yeah, I got hooked
Awesome.
on General Hospital because, and I was, yeah, for all you youngsters out there, don't do this, but I was signing my mom. Don't listen right now. I'd sign myself out of my afternoon so I could go home at 2 o'clock. I was skipping my for 2 weeks in a row. I
Ooh.
skipped my ecology class to go watch Days of Our Life, or I mean, to watch General Hospital. Just not. I mean, why? This is the dumbest thing ever. But whatever. Hey, that's what you do when
Yeah,
you're a senior. And I
kids
knew
do stupid stuff
I
like
was
that.
going. I knew I was going to community college, so I'm like, okay. I guess that's what I'll do. Then I go play
Yeah,
basketball afterwards as well. So,
sure. Yeah,
um,
I mean that seems
sorry.
legit. I feel like you should apologize for that, and write a
Uh,
note to your students and say, "Don't do what I did."
yeah, that's right.
But it's
Use this chat,
legit,
not
right?
that.
I mean, there is something to be said about the fact that, like, TV makes up such a huge part of our lives, and we talk about this in the Warp Core and on Graying Jedi. Like,
Yeah.
it literally has positively driven society, like the sci-fi in particular. I definitely feel like I was way more interested in reading and history and um, getting to know the world and how to be a good citizen of it because of shows like Star Trek. It's not just the fluff. And I think that's something to be said too, is that it's easy to forget, that TV is not what it was in the 50s, right? It's not just pure entertainment to make you laugh or excite you in some way. It can be very informative without being presumptuous, right? Like it's not beating you over the head every 5 minutes with a message necessarily, but it can definitely give you something to boost your interpersonal skills or your academic skills without being the EI shows that like we market so heavily to kids. Like I know from my daughter, because I think as a 20 something, I probably would have said, well, that's not possible. Like you have to be specifically aimed at education information to have any kind of benefit. But now, I look at my daughter who picked up, like Team Umizoomi, Nickelodeon show,
Oh yeah.
really annoying, terrible show.
My kids love.
But
Yeah.
she learned so much from that show about patterns and shapes and just like tunes and music recognition, and took such enjoyment from that experience that it made her want to learn like all these other things. And I was like, wow, I would have never as a kid vested an interest in anything else like that because of a show. I got interested in learning languages because of anime and interested in history because of shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and whatever the History Channel was running, because I watched that show that channel like a fiend.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like that's something as a parent, I never ever would have anticipated. Seeing my daughter like transform like that with expanding her mind. That's just like it's mind-boggling to me. Like I have a hard time wrapping my head around how is this even possible that she's growing, just by watching these what seem to me almost like mindless shows like Coco Melon, where they're just singing songs, but you start to pay attention. You're like, wow, they're actually like Coco Melon, not so much. It's definitely aimed at like little kids, but shows like Bluey, I love Bluey,
Yeah.
and I'm not ashamed to say I watch Bluey just for my own enjoyment because it's definitely geared towards parents, but the beauty of that show is they explore such like really deep concepts about life and living, stuff that I would have never in my wildest dreams thought a children's television show would examine. I mean, there's whole episodes on the concept of growing up, and not just growing up, but like the whole cycle of life, like birth through death,
Oh
and
wow.
musing on an afterlife. And it's like, wow, this is, oh man, ultras already. Holy crap.
Can you keep me over there?
Nope, I drove him right back. But I mean, that's astounding. And they don't. I don't think my daughter recognized like the highbrow concepts, but it's explaining it or presenting it in such a manner that it's sort of like comforting and calm and just accessible. And I mean, that show in particular really wows me. But a lot of kids shows really wow me like that. I mean, what your kids are older, but they're still kids.
Right.
What I mean, from your perspective, are they getting into shows like Trek and things like that, or are they more the crowd that's like, I want to watch,
Oh, they're on
this or
YouTube all the
that or
time.
whatever?
Yeah, they're more into streamers. Um, they're really not watching that much TV. But I will say this: my son has been asking me a little bit more recently about music I listen to, and when did I start listening to it? Like he's been asking me about Ice Cube. So I was
Ice
explaining,
Cube.
yeah, the first time I ever heard that because he was listening to, or he wasn't listening to it, or maybe he was. Today was a good day, and so, or
Nice.
I was playing it in the car. That's why. And so he's like, "Oh, that's Ice Cube." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "So when did you start listening to them?" And so I was talking about how Aaron and I and our buddy Chris were going to Baldwin one year, and Aaron had picked up The Predator, and he's like, "You guys have got to hear this." And we listened to it on the way up to our uh, on the way up to Baldwin for our trip, and we were just amazed at that album. I mean, genius album. One of my top, personally for me, one of my top five ever.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Brilliant.
and so we talking about that, and then we're talking about the Grateful Dead a little bit. So, I listened to that, and I was talking again. I was relating it back to our Baldwin trips, and so it's just kind of neat. I'm hoping that he's going to get into the music. I think that you always hope that as a dad or as a parent, that they're going to get into your music and you can listen to those things together.
Yeah.
Um, but let me go back over here. I'm getting distracted again. Um,
Oh
so yeah,
boy.
that's been something kind of cool to experience.
That is really cool. I mean, I that's one thing like I always wonder about because yeah, I listen to a ton of music, and we have a couple of Alexa devices, that we play music on it. One, I've been reminded that some of my music contains explicit lyrics, probably not suitable for children, and that's legit. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, like, yeah, that's just me making that classic dad,
Right, it
what Archie
happens.
Bunker type,
Bundle, yeah, or
fumble as
blunder,
a
yeah.
parent, and I'm like, whoops, that's probably not good. Um, but it's cool to see. Like I watched, of course, Rings of Power. I love that show. I would love to do a podcast on the Lord of the Rings, just as a whole subject. Um, but I did watch through that show, and it's not terribly musical, but one of the big sequences that I really enjoyed tremendously was "This Wandering Day," which is sung by one of the Harfoots in the show, and I just love that song. I absolutely fell in love with it the first time I heard it, and I thought to myself, this is something I want to listen to on Alexa around the kids because they should appreciate songs and music that like I might not normally listen to because I consider myself kind of a renaissance man when it comes to music. I listen to a lot of different things, and in a way I think it was pretty unexpected for me to have a song like that playing, but once I did, it was incredible to see how immediate her response was to the song, to now she like falls asleep with that song on repeat.
Right.
And that's just I mean frankly it's one of the coolest things, like as a dad, that I'm like, wow, she actually digs my music. Like that's like is there anything more rare than a kid who wants to listen to their dad's stupid music? And that's always been kind of like a goal of mine, in a way, to um, to sort of inspire her to do things like that. Is like
Sure.
you know uh, watch shows that I watch, or appreciate music I appreciate, because that's not common. I mean, honestly, it's tough for a kid to really connect with something that's not just like senior to them, like Star Trek was to me, the original series, but we're talking now, what, 60 plus years removed to TOS. I mean, that's a lot of territory to cover to be
Right.
culturally relevant, and yet somehow, of course, Star Trek does it. And I've always wondered, like, is that something that you know, going forward, are my kids going to bring what I'm giving them to their kids? And by and large, they probably will. But, Star Trek has permeated the ages for this same reason. Like they made something truly timeless, and it's like, wow, I really hope that sticks. You know what I mean? Like I hope that's not something that gets lost with age and time, because it meant so much to me, and I know it meant so much to my dad. Star Trek in particular, like, I think at some point there was a lot of jokes about it, right? Like, William Shatner's acting and
Right.
some of the tropes. But there was something just like culturally, I don't know what even the word I'm looking for is, but like there was something that felt really important about what they were doing on that show that I think made people feel maybe better about the world around them in a lot of ways, because it was a challenging time, not just in US history, but global history. And, quite frankly, I think that's something that you can't discredit. In terms of longevity of a television series, that's pretty potent. And it's something I really think about a lot. Is like, you know, how do you reconcile that against shows of today? Because I typically am like pretty critical, I guess, of TV shows that are popular now, because I just don't feel that they get at the significance or the, I don't want to say highbrow nature of what TV used to do. Because, I mean, we've watched some of those corny episodes of Star Trek where we're like, really? Was this something they had to do? um,
Right.
but you know what I mean? Like I impart this stuff for those kinds of reasons. Like I really want them to feel like, hey, this is important, and this is not just a note for your history book, but something you should really feel is connecting you with the past in a very positive light, that can be more than just a passing interest or a niche interest for a geek kind of thing.
Yeah. I think when it comes to that, I guess this is more of a general statement. I think Star Wars is something easier for a family to rally around,
Yeah.
almost, right, than Star Trek. Or I think it takes the older kid to kind of get into Star Trek, versus you can turn on Star Wars for your kids. At like I remember Nick watching Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope, and he was 6 or 7 years old with his Nerf lightsaber spinning around, and that's
Oh
okay,
yeah.
right? Because even though the bad guys are bad guys, they're really not that scary. Versus Darth Vader's voice, right? Is that even really that scary? And it's more understandable, right, for the that younger generation in a sense too, versus a Star Trek, or I mean, versus a Star Wars, which is I think overall probably gives Star Wars the leg up, or has always given Star Wars a leg up, probably more monetarily than anything, is that it appeals to a larger mass in a sense, or there's more people that you can get fiscally involved in it,
Oh
right?
sure.
It's a financial thing.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and that was always Lucas's vision, is to make Star
sure.
Wars something for a generation, generations and generations to come. It was never meant to be this like niche nerddom that I think in some ways that always felt prohibitive to me, to like enjoy some of the shows that were out there. I mean, I'm struggling to think of one now, of course, because I'm in the moment and I'm starting to finally attack an enemy here.
Oh,
But I'm trying to.
oh,
What? Surrender? No.
you can always say no. There we go.
Wow, they didn't expand very much. I'm kind of
Were they
surprised by that.
enemies or were they allies? It was
Um,
just one.
it was just one.
Okay.
I just toned it
Man,
down.
this
Wow.
game, man, like the balance sometimes to try and find that balance between, maybe you throw in a medium as a ally for them.
Yeah, I think that
Throwing that
might be
out
the
there
way to go.
because
But just quickly, let's hop over to our current analytics. We've got one viewer right now. Hey, thanks for joining us. We've had a couple people pop on the stream. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for joining. Let's just take a look, Lord Uther, and see in terms of subscriber count. When we started this stream, we were at 498. Now, we are looking to hit that 500 mark tonight and grow, of course, from there. 500 is certainly not a be-all, end-all, hopefully. Unfortunately, it does look like we've dropped one subscriber with
Like, get rid of these
497.
guys. They're awful.
Like, oh, these. I didn't sign up for this. Where's the baby and dog videos? Well, I'll tell you what. If you stay tuned, you may hear about propane and propane accessories. But, well, you can now be the 498th, 499th, and
What are you waiting for?
500th subscriber. Yeah, what are you waiting for? You might as well.
Click it. Yeah.
It's free, and it's, digestible content. Digestible. We don't market Metamucil, but it's just one of those things. I think it would be really cool to hit 500 tonight. If we don't make it, we don't make it. We have a fun little live stream for y'all to enjoy. We are, of course, talking Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear. We're talking Warp Core. We're talking Graying Jedi content, and kind of anything else that comes to mind. We are, of course, very introspective individuals here at Pending Rebrand. We like to explore the meta-analysis, not only of what we're watching, but the implications of shows like that. So if you have thoughts or comments, what do you think is the reach of Star Trek, or why it has such staying power? Why don't you drop that in the comments for us? In between games, we'll hop back and we'll check in and see what's being said. Certainly, if you'd like to get a little shout out here on a live stream, we are very open to making that happen. So, I throw it back to you, Uther. When you were watching Star Trek as a little kid, like, what was important to you? Like, what kept you coming back?
Oh, it's the starship, right? It's that idea of being in outer space, laser beams, all that kind of stuff, warp engines. That's what really captured me as a youth. And then I think as I got a little bit older, I will accept your invite. It was the camaraderie amongst the three of them, amongst McCoy and Kirk and Spock. That was something that kind of continued to draw me into the show. And, we've talked about this before, just all the tech that actually has made it to today that was in Star, even, back in the 60s, writing on when he would sign, it was supposed to be like a computer screen that he was signing. We have iPads and stuff like, the flip phones were modeled almost after the communicators. So back, when I was younger thinking, I wonder if we'll ever have that stuff one day. And here we are. And that's something that Star Trek has done, right? It's really inspired people.
Right.
To
sure enough,
outside the box. Okay. There we go. So I was thinking about this as we were talking, kind of back to music a little bit. Was there any music that you grew up around that you have taken with you, like that you're listening to at home or anything like that?
That's a great question. And I think I get asked this a lot because I have very unique, I guess in a way, manner of speaking, unique tastes in music.
Right.
And growing up, we listened to a lot of 90s country until I was in probably third grade. And the Spice Girls were big. Now, they are not who I've brought, to the forefront of my kids' lives today. Nothing against them. I've come to appreciate what they were in
Sure.
life. But it was definitely something that I made a very cognizant choice to branch out my tastes in music in third grade, and I remember this well because I got picked on in school,
grade.
like for a lot of reasons, but
Okay.
one of the reasons that kids chose to make fun of a person back then was your taste in music. What were you listening to?
I agree with that.
And third grade was kind of that real start where that became important, I guess. Because I think before that, I didn't really think about what was on the radio. I just enjoyed what was on there, and it was Alan Jackson, George Strait, uh, Garth Brooks was probably the big one that I like
Sure.
really latched onto, and I still listen to. But like my first cassette, and hopefully our listeners know what cassettes are. But my first cassette was a country artist by the name of Paul Brandt. Album was Calm Before the Storm, and I love that album. To this day, it's still one of my favorites. I don't listen to it a lot, but that was the first time like music was important to me. And I like the music I heard in TV shows, but I really hadn't come into my own from a taste perspective. There's definitely a time in early elementary school where you're kind of still whatever your parents have on or are listening to
Oh
or
yeah.
are doing, that's your life, right? And I was definitely still in that mode because there was a ton of great music going on, but I was sick of getting made fun of. So I went to a pawn shop and I got two CDs. The first two CDs I ever got was Spice Girls Spice and Sugar Ray's Floored.
Oh,
And
come on
um,
now. That's great.
yeah, I enjoyed the Spice Girls because that was also when I discovered like girls. so,
Right.
so I was like, okay, Jerry Halliwell was kind of my thing. And I realized pretty quickly after that that I really enjoyed that Sugar Ray album. It was at that time they were still pretty much a like speed punk band.
Oh, okay. Really?
They had that single "Fly,"
Yeah.
which was kind of like a early blending of like rock and reggae or rap that would become much more popular in the ensuing couple of years. But that was really my first foray into music, and I quickly escalated hard into new metal. New metal was my it's still my thing. I love all of those bands, but that was like I remember like discovering Limp Bizkit and Korn and Linkin Park, which Linkin Park was probably the big one for me for a long time. But I was unique because I watched MTV, and a lot of my peers at that age didn't watch MTV until about fifth grade.
Okay.
But we happened to get it in third grade, so I discovered a lot of bands that I had grown up around and heard on the radio, but never really like was connecting the dots because it's too little. So I got really into like Foo Fighters and
Oh, that's good
Stone
stuff.
Temple Pilots, Alice in Chains. Blind Melon was a big one for me, and
Yeah.
that was the band. Blind Melon's my favorite band of all time. Their first album's my favorite album of all time, and kids these days don't know the awesomeness that was the Columbia House sticker CD order where you got 12 or 15 CDs at a penny a piece, and I got a bunch of them. And Blind Melon was one of them. And I loved it. I mean, I still have that CD. I have a backup CD of that exact same album in case that one, like, for whatever reason, wears
Wow.
out. I have it on vinyl. I have it on cassette. I have a digital copy of it. I love that album. And I just dove headfirst into anything and everything from like the late 80s and early 90s grunge, post grunge, Seattle sound, and that it just grew from there. And then I started listening to new metal, metal, hard rock, and then 80s music was big for a long time. So my kids really get kind of a battery of stuff, but somewhere in college, I discovered like the 1960s and 70s, like the Beatles and
Right.
the Eagles. And I mean, I love the Eagles because I got the Common Thread album in '94 on tape. And I loved the covers on that record. And a lot of what they did with that was pretty inspiring for me, musically speaking. But what I've really brought to my sons and my daughter now have been, I mean, quite frankly, a lot of the '60s and '70s era music because it's pretty PC. It's like pretty family friendly. Oh boy, I got nothing.
All right.
So that was pretty much. Oh boy, hit me from both sides. They came through the rocks. That's atypical.
Let's see.
Um, Crap. And I didn't have any Vesping. I was too wrapped up talking about music. Son of a bitch. But yeah, that was really the big thing for me was finding my kind of niche with I don't know what's the word I'm thinking of with grunge and new metal, and I think bringing those kinds of tunes and vibes into my house has been kind of where I've settled. But my daughter really likes some Beatles songs. She's big into Elton John. She's kind of been into that sort of 70s scene that I don't know, accidentally kind of had her discover in a way.
Right.
And like it was never my intention to be like, okay, you're going to listen to Todd Rundgren. Like that's going
Right.
to be your thing. And that was that's just what she's kind of grown up with. My boys, who are still too young to really know what's going on, I guess is a good way to look at it. They really love anything that has a lot of motion and like I don't know
Okay.
rhythm.
Hmm.
So they really like rap music and they really like hard rock. Like they love Metallica, they love NWA, all these things that like as a kid, I think if that stuff would have come on the radio, my dad would shut the radio off forever.
Right.
And been like, all right, you're not listening to the radio anymore. Because there's just naughty words and the lyrical concepts were questionable, I think, in some cases. But then I listen to some of the music nowadays and I'm like, who did we have it tame? Like they talked about real life and real life is scary, but some of the stuff now I'm like, wow, does that like do we need a song about that? Like you can see
Right.
why Taylor Swift wins so many awards despite being I don't know. I'm not a fan. No offense to Taylor Swift fans. I'm just I don't care for her stuff.
What do you want me to
And I don't.
practice, Cruiser, to
Yeah,
protect you?
right there is fine.
Sorry.
I don't want to piss off the Swifties,
Right.
but she's just not my thing. I think she's a great person. I will say that she's done some amazing things in her personal life, but it's never really been a thing for me to be like into the popular music. And for me, a big thing that happened was 2003. I turned off the radio. I stopped listening to top 40 completely. I didn't even listen to like classic rock or hard rock stations at that point. Very seldomly. I purely dove into pirated music because everybody pirated music back then.
Right.
It was just a fact of life. I don't anymore. I haven't for a very long time because CDs are so cheap now, secondhand. And frankly, if I respected an artist, I still bought their album, even if I had pirated it first.
Right.
So, like, if it was something like popular that I just wanted to try on, I'd pirate it. And then it's like, okay, I really like this album. I'm going to go out and buy it. Like Nickelback. Nickelback was one I loved, but I loved him from Return of the Rock too. It wasn't, I didn't go out and like download all the right reasons, that big album that came out in 2005. Like I picked up Return of the Rock 2 and I was immediately a fan, and from there it was just I just kept doing my thing. Like I've always been big on like if it's something that means something to you, you're going to discover it eventually. And I hope it's the same for my kids. Like I hope they want to go through my records or my tapes or my CDs someday and be like, hey, can we listen to this? My daughter's done that a little bit. A lot of it is like, Alexa, play. She says it really cute. She says, play Elton John by Rocket Man. And that's like when she was, oh boy, not even 2 years old. We first got an Echo Dot and Amazon Music subscription, and she would come in and we would have it play Disney songs and stuff for her. and we would have it play the same songs because she liked them on repeat so much that she learned one of the first things she learned how to do with an Alexa device was to say, Alexa, play Lost in the Woods by Jonathan Groff on Amazon Music. And I'm like, wow, that's so specific for less than a
Right.
two. I mean, she talked very early, so like, she's always been a real chatty Cathy. So I wasn't surprised she was that articulate, but I mean, that to me was just mind boggling. Like, you know enough to, order a smart device to play a very specific song that you want to hear at such a young age that it's just like, it's beyond impressive. That to me is just, it's really something. And I've always just kind of stuck with that as like, I just can't believe that I've been so lucky as a dad to have that experience with my daughter to be like, she's so smart. She's known for forever, like what her favorite music is. And
Right.
because I didn't. I mean, when I was a kid, like I just kind of rode the wave until fourth or fifth grade, and she's kindergarten and has like a short list, but a list of things she listens to because she absolutely loves them and they make her happy. And that's it's so rare to find something in life that makes you happy, let alone all that much stuff that you can really, grasp onto and make it a part of your life that's because music never leaves you. It never really
Right.
gets old. Star Trek to me is has always been the same way. Like I've always loved Star Trek because I've never felt it's been dated. I mean, the campiness of it, the quality of the picture, the music, like, yeah, okay, some of it's a little dated these days, but the uh, the messages behind it, the entertainment value, it transcends time. Like, and it's something you can't trade. That's always been my thing. Is like, you'll never have to give this experience up because it's always going to be there for you. And I've sat on my little soapbox here for so long that now I'm getting attacked again. They're going to come wipe my base out.
I got you.
I've got tons of resources. I just like I can't seem to build enough stuff fast
I'm gonna go
enough.
after him a little bit to make him back off.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to pull this miner and rebuild this base. So for you, what from I mean I'm going to venture a few guesses here, but what specifically have you given to your kids? I know you've kind of got an interesting spectrum where you've got I know an older son and then a couple younger kids. Like I feel do they take things very differently, or are they kind of the same where they're pretty receptive?
Uh, I mean, when it comes to music and stuff, uh, again, I think they're kind of figuring that out, and I think that's one thing that YouTube has probably done that's not that great is they're stuck on watching streamers and stuff like that versus seeking out new music or something like that. So I think that's one thing
Getting
that's a little bit different.
some
Where when I
art.
was younger and I was their age, I was over at my buddies' houses listening to stuff that they listened to, like The
Sure.
Doors and Led Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's what kind of got me into um, a lot of the music that I still listen to and enjoy. And growing up, uh, my mom played Billy Joel all the time. So I grew
Oh,
up on Billy Joel, Glass Houses. Uh,
great album.
yes, I'm gonna back off here and repair my stuff real quick.
Just realized I don't have any supply depots.
Ooh, yeah. Let me repair my stuff.
I was like, why can't I build a barracks? You don't have any supply depots, stupid.
Uh,
Like, how did that happen?
uh, and then in middle school, I really got into the Doors, um, Led Zeppelin. I remember for my 18th birthday, I asked for the new Zeppelin remastered box set, and my
Ooh,
mom got it for me, and I was just I'm talking about my mom a lot tonight. I was just in awe of that because I had Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, and 4, but this was remastered and it came in that tan colored, like bound together
Yeah.
CD case. Um, and that actually led me to I wound up getting Metallica the Black Album had come out. I gotta come back over by you. Hold on a second.
How did that bring you into the Black Album? I'm just curious. Like that.
My buddy Jim was the one who kind of got me into Led Zeppelin and then got me into Metallica. Keith too, because Keith and his brother listened to a lot of uh, Kiss and stuff like that.
Oh,
So that
sure.
kind of got me into all that as well. Let me try and get back over here with all my stuff. Sorry, I thought I was gonna get there in time.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm actually really low on money.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, it's one thing. Like I've had family members ask me, like, "Where did you hear this or where did you hear that?" And I distinctly like, and I don't make this stuff up. Like I distinctly remember a lot of the discovery moments of music, and I'll never forget the first time I heard "Riders on the Storm." That song got me into the Doors.
Yeah.
We were driving home from Arkansas from visiting my mom, and it was late at night. We were in Iowa, and it was raining. No, it wasn't raining. We were driving into rain. Or no, we'd just driven out of rain in Missouri. And that stretch of I-35 in Iowa is about as boring gets. And I was in the back of my dad's, I think it was an Oldsmobile Alero, which was a cool car. I miss that car actually. Like that was as a kid that like you always dream of those muscle cars, but that was a as an adult that was a cool car.
Right.
I digress, but it had a really good sound system, and it was a radio broadcast, super late at night, so they played full length like old classic
Oh,
rock hits, and that
right.
with
Yeah.
that little keyboard part in the beginning, just like opened my mind, and I'm like, I have to figure out who this is and where it's come from, because it's like it was the perfect song at like the perfect moment. And it's just it's like hearing the Foo Fighters for the first time. When you hear Big Me and you're like, what is this? I need this in my life, and I didn't know it. Um, that was really the game changer for me, because I'd never heard music quite like that. And I think that's why the Doors have lasted as long as they've lasted, just from like a, I don't know, historical perspective, if you want to call it that, is because there's really nothing out there that's ever quite been like them, except maybe like Tool or something, um, in terms of like staying power and their uniqueness. Um, and that was just something that I remember. Not long after that, for Christmas one year, I asked, I think my aunt Angie, for the Doors double album, The Greatest Hits,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
with the little slipcase. I still have it, and I listened to the crap out of that in high
Yeah.
school. I mean, I don't think like, and I wasn't like, I didn't do any drugs, like nothing like that. It wasn't
Right.
any kind of nefarious stuff. Like, I just genuinely fell in love with that music in a way that, I mean, very few bands in my life have given me that kind of like sheer joy. Um, and that was just something that like I don't even have a descriptor for it, because I just loved it
Like
so much. It was like them and Pink Floyd together were the things that absolutely blew my mind, to the point that I really have no other precedent to speak of there. Like there is nothing that quite compares to how they came into be, this massive influence in my musical taste.
and I think what's so appealing about the Doors is Their music is very simple and straightforward. Their
Very
lyrics are
jazzy.
quick,
Yeah.
quick and to the point. Oh, I can't leave. I can't leave. I gotta come back. Sorry. I want to help you, but they're blowing up my stuff.
No worries. As these SCVs get in, I'll just pull up my defense. Reset these guys. And I'll just stop expanding into that base, I guess. It was funny. We were in the obviously tomorrow's Veterans Day, and I want to give a pending rebrand shout out to all members of our armed services. We owe you an immense and timeless debt of gratitude. We appreciate your sacrifices. I know my grandfather was a World War II vet, and I've never forgotten, you know, never forgotten how important, a sacrifice a military person has because of that. And of course, we're students of history. We should never forget World War II, period. Um, but we were in this assembly today at my daughter's school, and they were playing Lee Greenwood. Now, I have to say, the school needs to fire whoever set up its IT because they could not get this song to play consistently over like a slideshow of veterans in the community who are affiliated with the school. And I'm like, how is this how is this not a thing? Like, I realized very quickly they're using an Apple device, and anybody who uses an Apple device for anything should just know that this is just, you're asking for a bucket of problems. They're garbage. Throw them away. Get yourself a PC. But and no, I am not afraid to make those Apple people out there mad. All of it sucks. iPhones, everything. It's garbage. Throw it away. Um, drop a comment if you disagree.
That's
Hit
right.
subscribe and troll us in every video we put out. Be like, hey, I'm watching this on an iPhone. Ha ha ha. Anyway, they played Lee Greenwood, and it took me a minute to remember like that I even knew that, Proud to Be an American song. And
Right.
I never thought about this, but man, is that song just a bucket of cheese whiz. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is so audaciously cheesy. I almost feel kind of embarrassed by it. Like, and I know that's probably not like a Veterans Day sentiment, but like, I was just like, ugh, like, I don't know. If I was one of the armed services people sitting in this room, I'd be like, geez, can you pick a different song about America? Like, that feels a little cheesy. Um, so it's just funny the things music can do, and I would I would submit that the cheese sauce comes in multiple forms, and one of those is television. And I tie this back to Warp Core because watching the Return of the Archons today, boy, was some of that just a hair cheesy. Like,
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that episode. Actually,
yeah, and I don't feel bad about it. Don't get me wrong. Like,
right.
I enjoyed the episode quite a bit. But it did remind me, I mean, intentionally so, of course. It reminded me a lot of the South Park episodes, which are all inspired by Star Trek. I mean, there's so many Star Trek episodes that
Right.
are
Yes. Yes,
South
sir.
Park episodes now. Um, but, or vice versa. South Park episodes that are just Star Trek episodes told in a slightly different way. Um, but I couldn't help but notice, like, my goodness, is this cheesy? Like, cheesy on a level that's even a little bit saturated for Star Trek. I was like, woofda. Like, I mean, reflecting back, as we often do, like, do you feel that, like, let's talk about Shore Leave. We talked about that in the Warp Core a couple episodes ago. That was pretty cheese balls, like, to an nth degree. Do you ever feel like maybe part of the appeal of those shows is the cheese in some sense?
Well, back then, wouldn't you actually say that? Well, nowadays we can spot it, but back then, wasn't that good acting? Look at Charlton Heston when he acted.
Oh, good
Everything was
point.
dramatic, right? Like
Good
that was
point.
that was the old school way of acting. You did play work first, and then if you were lucky enough, you got on the TV or onto the big screen. I would even I would even make the argument that actors now that wind up going and doing some kind of plays are better actors for it after they've done some kind of on stage work, because
Oh
you've
yeah.
got to be on every time, right? You got to sell it every time, and I think
Yep.
that's part of of honing your craft. You know, it's just like the kids that go and play basketball. When the season ends, they play all summer long and they dribble in the driveway and they, act out game type situations, and they don't just end the season, put the basketball down, and then pick it up at the beginning of the next season. They go out there and they hone their craft. And I think that's something you see with, the actors then who had no choice but to start on stage. And
Yeah.
now the ones that go back, I think, look at Patrick Stewart. How much stage work has he done? Which
He
is why
still
he
does
is,
stage work.
yeah, which is why he's an amazing actor. Robin Williams had gone and done stage work, and I
Oh
think you
yeah.
saw a leap in his acting from being, the funny guy to being that serious actor. De Niro, Pacino, they've all done it. So I think any actor worth their salt has you know, done that at some point to hone their skills.
Oh, absolutely. I think that goes almost without saying. It's like you can't be. Well, I think it's just diversity, right? Like you can't really claim to be the best of anything or effective at anything if you aren't reaching beyond yourself, right? Like you have to commit to something different and nuanced and challenging if you're ever going to be anything more than what you are.
Yeah, I
You
think it's
know,
all
and
about
that.
consistency. So, I mean, I think that has something to do with it, that you're always just going after it like that and trying to make it happen, which I think you see with a lot of these people that do that nowadays. Um, but that dramatic acting, even I don't want to talk about Space Seed, but I have to. Even Ricardo Montalban, with the way he was doing his stretches at one point and like finding
Mhm.
his chi, and then the way he was talking, that's all like emphasis on words. Think about that back then. That's why William Shatner has dramatic pauses, right? Because that is what got the audiences hooked.
Yep,
And that,
absolutely.
people think it's cheese. Not back then.
No,
Not
I
back
mean it was definitely like wow, what do you want to call it? Like it was a necessary part of entertaining. Like you and I think about this a lot when we think about life during westward expansion. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but when you think about what it was like to be on the frontier or in the West, and you didn't have a whole lot to influence your day or entertain you, you really had to make a lot of things out of nothing. And part of that was deriving entertainment from very sometimes scant sources. And I think about how in a lot of ways the way we think about how actors come up and develop themselves now is really closely related to sort of the economy of available ways to entertain oneself. You had your barroom showgirls and piano players and whatnot, and you only had so many things you could do to really produce content, if we want to think of it in the modern lens. And to that end, it's really difficult to, I think, in the way that the world changed from there, it's difficult to do anything else without having that sense of economy. Like you have to utilize every second, every available opportunity to grow yourself as an entertainer. And Shatner, I think I sent you guys a video today, like of DeForest Kelly talking about Shatner and Nimoy, and how that character dynamic really came out of nothing. It was a very, one-off type thing where they had an exchanging of words and a characterization moment that ended up defining how those characters were written because of fan response. And at that point, they had very little exposure, very little, you know, time and energy committed to, presenting Star Trek as, I guess, if you want to think of it as a product to an audience. You had a really tight economy of like how you entertain and what you can do to entertain and to maintain that entertaining. you have, you have to be creative. You have to do all these things that we have so many outlets today and so many with YouTube and Twitch and I mean, here we are recording podcasts
Right.
for what I would say is comparatively speaking very little cost. There's almost no
Oh yeah.
overhead after a while. Not that there aren't costs because there's always costs, but there's so much that folks can do now that it dilutes the quality of what you're getting. And you can really tell, and yeah, consistency is part of that. Where if you get somebody who's dedicated to delivering a consistent product, it almost ends up sort of having to be quality because they're so consistently honing out
Yeah, you
what
get your. Go ahead. I'm
what
sorry.
they are to the world. Like, yeah, you get reps in. Yeah, I mean
It's your skill set.
that's exactly it. Is like you really don't have a choice. You either get rich or die trying. 50 Cent.
That's
Whew, dropping
oh
knowledge bombs right
yes,
here,
that's
just
right.
like.
The philosophical StarCraft 2 uh, YouTube cast.
But let's shift away for a moment. We talked about kind of the meta mumbo jumbo, I guess, of what we do on Warp Core. How about Star Wars? We're chewing through Andor right now. We're what, halfway done with that series. Um, they're branching out into more like kid type shows. What do you see? I know we talk about the future of Star Wars and what it could be and what it should be from a kid's perspective, because and when I say kids, I don't mean little kids like the new Jedi Adventures are aiming towards, but from a older kid's perspective. What do you think the future of that franchise is for TV, streaming, movies?
I think it's more Mandalorian type driven with a lot of action, some emotional cues and response. I mean, because let's be honest about Mandalorian, Grogu pulls at the heartstrings,
Right.
right? And even though the one thing which, spoiler alert, it might be our next podcast, is the Mandalorian. But I think the one thing you really think in season one, which I think they got away from and was a mistake, was the Western type vibe. Even his music, when he would walk in, had that Western vibe to it. And I think that was one of the
Oh yeah.
strengths, and I think that could appeal to a lot of different people. So I think whether you're appealing to, that whatever, if you're talking like 14 to 20, I don't know, I'm just picking a number, but even to people like our age, I think those are the type of shows that you aim for. And, to Silly Moss's point, Andor is not for kids. Like it's not that it's not like there's violence or anything like that, but the storytelling and what we're seeing is just at a different level,
Yeah.
and won't be understood or maybe appreciated as much as that kid that wants to see the 7 minute long lightsaber duel that maybe leads into a starship chase. That's what I think they want to see.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
And it's cool to see that there's such a thirst for, shall we say, different like media. It's different Star Wars stories that, like, I think growing up pre prequels, let's say, we wanted to know you know just more Jedi stories, frankly, and
right.
more anything Star Wars at that point.
That's all
But
we
now
wanted.
we have this amazing luxury of like, I want to know more about what's going on in the Empire outside of the Jedi. And it does appeal in a way. I think I've always said that it appeals more to adults because we kind of know like that's more real world. That's always been more real world is what's going on outside of this Jedi, you know, hocus pocus, ancient religions. And maybe you find the lack of faith disturbing here, but I think you could almost tell Star Wars stories without any Jedi and just focus on life in the Empire and still tell tons of great stories without trying all that hard. Hey, what do you know of victory?
We'll take that.
But yeah, that's my thought.
I think you can't oversaturate. I think we talked a little bit about oversaturation, but I think the oversaturation almost comes from the Jedi piece of it. Like the
Yeah,
Mandalorian, we saw just enough Jedi to
yeah,
keep us interested.
for sure. And we are circling back. We've still got a concurrent viewer. We appreciate you joining us here at Pending Rebrand. We have just crossed over the hour and a half mark here. Let's check in, Lord Uther, on our subscriber base. Still
Yes.
sitting at 497, but hey, we appreciate each and every one of you.
Yes.
Let's give out some subscriber shout outs. Something we haven't done on our shows, and apologies for that because we do appreciate each and every one of you who subscribe to the channel. But our top subscriber here, just by list. So this is by no means a ranking or a judgment. But let's shout it out to Death of Greatness, available here at YouTube. Feel free to go subscribe to that channel. Appreciate you following us. Jennifer Mendez, another subscriber here on our list. Appreciate you subscribing. Both Jennifer and Death of Greatness, those are in the month of October subscribers. Definitely thank you. Let's go back and look at an older subscriber here, somebody who's been with us a little bit longer. Let's see. Kevin Lopez, August 16th, 2023,
Wow.
subscribed to the channel. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for following. We always like a good boost to our subscriber base. A good pal of mine went to high school with Eric Munson. Thank you, buddy, for joining, and happy birthday again. We're birthday buddies, he and I. Appreciate you being with us. And then this, I just like the name. Subscriber from actually the day before my birthday this year, Deuce 1305. So shout out to you, Deuce. We definitely appreciate a good Deuce here at Pending Rebrand. But just wanted to give some thank yous and some shout outs there. We have all sorts of content pending rebrand. We are not, strictly speaking, a gaming channel. We're not strictly speaking a sci-fi channel. We are a channel for all interests, because why not, right? We all have varying interests. We want to branch out to more shows. We want to do more niches. I want to do a Lord of the Rings podcast. I would love to do a podcast about well, I'd love to do just more podcasts. Obviously, we're all working adults too, so we have to balance our time. But one thing we do like to do, and regardless of the topic or the podcast we're on, is we like to show kind of our nerddom, shall we say. Recently, you may have caught one of the two of my videos of my NCC 1701 models. Lord Uther, of course, has one as well. But today, and I was talking to Lord Uther about this before the stream, I am a very savvy Target shopper. I certainly hope you all enjoy Target as much as I do. I know I hit up the Starbucks every time I'm there to get the kids a little treat and myself a seasonal beverage. Today I had the oat milk chai latte, and it is phenomenal. The flavor of this latte this month is gingerbread. Huge gingerbread fan, so very much enjoy that. Not getting paid to mention Starbucks or Target, But I
Yeah.
will tell you what pays is saving money, and I save big money on some GI
So
Joes,
jelly.
Cobra Commander, and Major Blood. Um, I'm just like I'm so excited about these. These are the only two characters from the GI Joe cartoon that I actually really liked. Um, Major Blood is always my favorite because of the meme. And I don't know about y'all, but one of my favorite memes on the interweb is knowing is half the battle. And then a close up of Major Blood's face, and it says, and the other half is violence. So if you're an old internet nerd like me, you may appreciate that reference. But back to the usual chat. Eric,
Hey,
Lord
real
Uthman.
quick, real quick. Cobra Commander, is that a scarf he has on, or is that a shirt underneath that's red? I feel like I've always thought it was a scarf.
I believe that's a shirt. It looks like an
It's a red shirt.
undershirt, almost like a bit of Kevlar armor or something
Oh, okay.
beneath. I thought it was a scarf too in the cartoon. So
All right. That's
once
just weird.
again, look
Maybe
at
maybe
this.
he's an evil terrorist leader that wears a scarf. I was
Hey,
just checking. I
scarves can be worn by the good, the bad, or the ugly, or the pretty, like myself. Eric, I just want to throw this out to you real
yeah,
quick.
please.
If you were going to say do something like what we do,
Yes.
stream, make podcasts, maybe you own a taco truck, but you want to market, you want to get to that next level. And I think we all know the internet is the key to getting that next level. Where would you go? Who would you ask for consultation, design, building that website to get you to where you want to be?
Well, if I want to get to the highest level, I'm of course going to go to Peak Media because they are the peak of web design. They are the peak of business consultation. They are the peak of graphic design. So if I was looking to expand my reach on the interwebs, to get the best SEO out there, to make sure I'm getting traffic driven to my newly beautifully functionally created website, I would get a hold of Michelle at Peak Media and I would work with her, just some of the best in the industry, and have that new website up and ready to go through Peak Media.
Love it. Absolutely. Peak Media, they designed our website, which will be coming soon, pendingrebrand.com. And I got to tell you, we've always been satisfied 100% with not just their service, not just their product, not just their consultations and designs, but just the overall experience is truly exceptional. And not only are they the peak for all your needs, but they are the peak at what they do. Peak Media, that's peakmds.co. peakmds.co. Now back to the game.
I got
I
one
didn't
for you.
realize that I could sort this category
Oh,
to
well,
just Blizzard maps. So I was like, why are all these weird like macro player built maps in here? So let's find a map that's maybe a little more conducive to our stratagems. I might actually try playing a different race for S's and G's.
I always thought you were a Protoss guy. All I know is
I
Terran. All I know.
I play Terran. I played everything. Frankly, I kind of like playing Terran the best in StarCraft 2. In StarCraft, I was always a Protoss guy. I was very good with them. So why not? Let's give it a college try. We'll fight on Core Hall. I like Core Hall. I like this map. I like this game. The story of this game is just wonderful. Like I have to say, it's one of those games that I can play over and over and over, and I never really truly feel like I've gotten everything out of it because it has multiple storylines you can take and you can
Right.
earn points and whatever. I don't pay attention to that part of it, I guess, but great game.
Nothing like Diablo 4 where I'm 58th level and I have no idea what that game is about. Even though I beat it and it took me to the next hardest level, I still don't even know what the plot line was because I was just following the quests all over the place, trying to build
Right.
up my. One of these days, I'll slow down and actually appreciate the storylines that are in some of these games instead of just being like, okay, how quick can I level my guy up and beat the game?
That
I
was
should
kind
actually
of
pay
like
attention. But
I will say I don't like fetch quest games, but this is the first game where it's almost kind of relaxing to just sort of
oh
play.
yeah, go out there and knock things around. So
Yeah.
you'll love this. The last game where I actually followed the storyline was Final Fantasy VII.
That's
That's the
perfect.
last. That's the
That's the only
last
game worth following the storyline.
time I followed a storyline, and what a beautiful game. I had it for the PlayStation 1. I also had the Battle Royale game for Star Wars. Or no, I'm sorry, not Battle Royale. Just um, a side fighter, like Mortal Kombat. They
Oh,
had it,
sure,
but
sure.
with Star
Yep.
Wars characters. That was the other PS1 game I had. But I remember playing Final Fantasy VII, and I was just blown away on the PlayStation. Such a
Yeah.
great game.
I mean, it was quite possibly the greatest game of all time. Greatest game ever made. Whew.
I agree.
Misquoted it. Oof. You can shame me in the comments. I deserve it. Yeah, I Final Fantasy VII. I had a lot of PlayStation One games. I have a lot of games in general, but PlayStation One was a big one for me. That I I got hooked by Final Fantasy VII for sure. But I think to that end, my big what's the word I'm thinking of? My big
Obsession.
obsession was just this, like you said, the story of that game was so immersive and
Yes.
so spectacular that I couldn't help but eat it up. I mean, the train heist to the the global cataclysms and the it didn't have like quite the job system, and the cast of characters was just so
It,
diverse
it's
and interesting, and all the
it's so
mysteries, all the little hidden aspects to the game. Like it was the first real RPG I played, so that definitely had something to do with it too. But I played Super Mario RPG before that, which is also a fantastic
okay.
game, coming
Very
out for
good.
the Switch November 17th. Of course, I have a copy coming. But that game kind of opened my mind to the idea of like secrets in games. Like, I mean, I like Super Star Wars or Super Return of the Jedi. I had played, and you get cheat
Oh,
codes to like go to whatever level, but those weren't really like the secrets, like all the hidden materia in Final Fantasy VII, and so that I mean, it opened minds, I think, for a lot of gamers, but for me specifically, the idea that a game could be so much more than what I played in the arcade, or some of those games where like frankly, you just like you have one goal, you go and accomplish it, or you don't, and you're done. Like that's always been the big draw for me of Final Fantasy. I will say I bought Final Fantasy 16, pre-ordered it. I got it the day it came out. I still haven't played it. It's still in the plastic wrap.
oh,
Haven't taken it out. What I've found is, as an adult, I just don't have the
yeah.
desire or time to sink that much time into a game. Diablo 4 was really the first time in a long time I like made time during my week to play. One, because we were playing as a group for a while, and two, like I actually really enjoyed the story. Even though I hadn't played the first couple Diablo games, like it was fun. Like it was interesting and compelling, and it kind of just one of those things where like I could get behind it, and it wasn't too scary. Like I as a kid I remember thinking, "Ooh, Diablo looks scary. I don't want to play that game." StarCraft didn't scare me one iota. I was used to aliens. I watched Star Trek all the time.
That's right. That's right.
So, but yeah, it was just it is a great game. Blizzard does a great job with their stuff, but it was just one of those things that I never really thought of as a kid, but it is kind of it's interesting to see like what it takes to really get in behind a game as an adult. Like the time factor of like, to me it's completely beyond reason to fathom that I would have to spend X amount of hours to get through a game. Even like mobile games, which I play pretty frequently these days, I have a hard time sinking the amount of time into those games, what it takes to really be successful at them. Not that I don't enjoy them, because I certainly do.
Right.
Oh, poop. I just attacked that rock formation, and now it's in my way. Son of a gun, I just lost 400 minerals because of that.
Oh, that's weird.
That is
Something
super
like
weird. I
that.
thought like the rocks just disappear when you attack them. Well, that's
Yeah, I
dumb.
thought that. Yeah.
But so I mean, we're old gamers. As an adult, have you found that the time constraints have changed the games you actually enjoy playing?
Oh, without a doubt. But that was to me, that was the great thing about Diablo was I could play for 45 minutes and accomplish a side quest. So, I really wonder if that's something that they had in mind when they make those games sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah,
you don't have to be super involved all the time in order to play this game, or you can play it for 5 hours straight. I look, I know I talk to you all the time about retirement, but that's one of the things I look forward to doing in retirement is sitting down and being like, I'm gonna get into this game, I'm gonna learn, like I'm gonna pay attention to the storyline because I got 5 hours. I don't have to worry about it. Like that's what I'm gonna do. Yes, at 60, I will be playing video games and I will be loving every single
and you
minute of
should.
it. Why wouldn't I? So, uh, the idea of being able to do that and put the time into it is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of the
and
dream, right?
oh yeah, and I think the other very appealing thing about uh, Final Fantasy VII was that was one of the first games where I actually liked the pre-generated
Graphics.
characters.
Yeah.
If I because usually I wanted to make up my own guys, but that was a game where I didn't I didn't mind what they already had
Hmm.
um, there for you. So just such a great game. Such a great like
And
that's a game I wouldn't mind going back and revisiting um, one more time. Like it was that good. The other one I liked was Might and Magic 4. That was a game that my buddy Scott and I played a lot of, and that was a pretty good game. And you could find Excalibur, the sword, in that game,
oh
and we were
yeah.
all about just mining and farming that game until the one day we found Excalibur because we had a Paladin in our group, and so he was wielding Excalibur. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's
Um,
so cool.
but that's one of the great things about those games is being able to do some of those side quests that. And back in the day, you couldn't find the answers on the internet. You had to either figure it out or, admittedly, I would go buy the hint books, and I miss. But you and I talk about that a lot. I miss the physical media. I miss going and
Yeah.
buying, getting those hint books and actually sitting down with it. Oh boy, let me back up a little bit here. Get my stuff repaired. Um, you know, and I think I was telling you guys, you and Aaron, the other day that I wanted to get TOS in 4K and it's not out yet, and I'm worried that for some reason they won't release it in uh, 4K because do they want people to not stop consuming their streaming media? Like, is there
Mm.
actually an incentive for them not to put that out there like that?
Oh, that's interesting. I'd never thought of that. Maybe. I'm glad I got all those VHS tapes when I did, and I'm glad I keep.
Yeah,
I might be the last person on Earth ordering physical media. I mean, I know I'm
uh,
not, but like,
yeah. Obviously, I've been too, but yeah,
I would always encourage anybody to, build up a physical media library. And I always did it as a youngster because, growing up, not having a ton of money, kind of taught me like you never really know when you're going to go broke, you know. And especially in college, I was like, I know for a fact that there could come a time where I don't have the money to go to a movie or to, do things I want to do So I'm going to have to sit at home and make my own fun.
Right.
And if I have to discontinue cable or satellite or whatever, I know that I can go to my physical media and I have just tons and tons and tons of content right there at my fingertips at any point in time. Like if I needed to distract myself because I don't have money for food for 3 meals a day or whatever,
Right.
if you sit in front of enough movies, like you'll either fall asleep or be able to distract yourself from hunger pain long enough to be like, okay, I, I'm good. I don't need to eat 3 meals. I can eat 2 meals or whatever. Now,
Right.
fortunately, I've never been so hard up for cash my whole life so far that I've had to do that. But I always felt like that's just how you prepare for that kind of potential inevitability. And now it's totally changed in that I buy the physical media because, to be honest with you, you never know when they might just stop offering it. And you might not have that luxury of getting to just enjoy the things you like because they're no longer there. Like you don't have that opportunity anymore.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, that's why I've been building up my collection again. It's just something I want to have, and again, I guess maybe it's the little bit of the nostalgia piece that goes along with it. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I gotta say, I'm not like super familiar with some of these Protoss units, so that's my learning curve right now. Is just knowing like what the hell unit is what here. Carriers are on their way. That was always in the first Star Trek, StarCraft. That was always my goal when I ran Protoss. Is like doesn't matter what I do as long as I can get carriers. Game over.
Oh yeah.
Although that I think really the nice thing that StarCraft 2 has done is that has changed it. So you can't just cheese your way through StarCraft 2 matches. Some people might not enjoy that as much as I do, but I really do actually enjoy it.
Yeah, there's multiple builds that you can put together that can be very effective. Even though I watch, like I said, I watch those professional players, and I'm like amazed at what they could do.
Micromanaging
Yes.
is just I wish
Like,
I was that good at a game to, to be like,
yeah.
okay, I'll micromanage. I can't. I don't have that attention span or focus. So kudos to the players that can do it, especially the ones that are like on Adderall because they need to be. Like that's cool, dude. Like you should feel super proud that you have that skill and ability. I know it's playing a video game, but that doesn't make it any less impressive to me.
Right.
All right.
Well, there's just so much skill. I mean, there's a ton of skill and strategy that goes into it. I mean, you got it. To me, it's almost like, well, it's almost like chess, where you got to be thinking a couple steps ahead, what you're going to manage here, what you're going to put there, and then what's your opponent doing. Obviously, with their comp stomps, we kind of know what they're up to, right?
Yeah.
Where when
Yeah,
you're
for the
going
most
against
part.
someone else who might have some strategery, it could be different with how you're going to approach it.
Hmm.
Here, it's just I got to build more carriers than the other side in enough time. For me,
I
I
mean,
mean,
kind of, it's yeah. I will say that the stalker blink ability is kind of irritating. Like to have to blink places. That's the old fuddy duddy in me. Be like, damn kids
I
these days.
can't respect this blink ability.
Construct additional pylons. Well, I have some carriers. Must have fewer than 8 interceptors. Well, here's an interesting thought. I don't actually know how to upgrade my carriers. Or if they even have upgrades. I guess it's just air armor. It used to be you had to upgrade them so many times to get more interceptors. And I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. So, when we're talking Packer football, I find it very interesting. Now, I live in Minnesota. You, of course, live in the Chicagoland area, so you're a homer.
Right.
I used to live in Packerland not that long ago and grew up there, of course. But being amongst the Vikings fans, and I want to get a Bears fan's perspective on this, but there are Vikings fans that legitimately did not know that the Bears are the historic rival of the Packers and a much bigger rival than the Vikings.
Really?
How is that possible?
I don't know. I had a good friend of mine that I taught. Oh, hold on a second. That I taught with. She knew that we were rivals, but I don't know how you can't figure out that it's always been Bears Packers. Like that's the thing. Probably, I mean, name a better rivalry in football.
I don't think there is one, honestly.
I mean, I felt like for a while there that the Niners Dallas rivalry was pretty good, like during Deion Sanders days.
Yeah, that one was not bad, or even the Steelers Dallas rivalry.
Maybe when T.O. was around and prime time and stuff like that, but I feel like that's kind of gone to the wayside a little bit. And it's still, that Bears Packers. It's the game you always look forward to.
I mean, I think when you have
That whole division, Detroit. I mean,
I will say the division rivalry, just as on the whole, like you said, it's a good rivalry. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like what I find challenging is like of all of the opponents in the division, like quite frankly, I don't even take the Lions seriously, even though this year they're the best team in the NFC North. I don't really take the Vikings seriously either. I mean we've had plenty of skirmishes, but they're just the Vikings. Like when Brett Favre went to the Vikings and Packer fans lost their collective crap. I almost felt like do I need to remind people that it's just the Vikings? Like they're an expansion team. And boy do Vikings fans hate it when you say that. But
I can see why.
I mean, it's just like they're not a bad team. Like I have respect for them, but they're we have 50 years of rivalry between the Packers and Bears that the Vikings didn't even exist.
When did the Vikings actually come about? I mean,
I want to say 71.
Oh wow.
Yeah. They're an expansion team. So like who did Minnesotans root for before the Vikings? Probably the Packers.
Yeah.
So, I kind of wonder like is there anything to it? Like they're just like, "Rah, this is our team now." And it's like, man, get out of here.
Right. I
I mean,
remember.
and Vikings fans, they're almost like the Oakland fans of the NFC North, or like in the old NFC Central days, like the Tampa Bay fans were always just kind of obnoxious. Like, and I'm not saying all Vikings fans. Obviously, I have family who are Vikings fans. They're fine. But there are some Vikings fans that just are so high on their own farts. That's like, really, dude? Like, they're
But they had
just the Vikings. Like,
they had Fran Tarkington. I mean, come on.
the best thing Fran Tarkenton ever did was get
Was
mentioned in Super Troopers 2.
Oh, he did? I've never seen it.
When the two cops are pretending to speak French to the people who obviously have no concept of what French sounds like, and they keep dropping just like sort of French sounding things. They're like, "Oh, croissant de Fran Tarkenton," and it's a pretty funny scene. That might make for an interesting podcast. Offbeat and what do they say? Irreverent comedies.
And I've never seen that one, so I would have to see it.
Have you ever seen the first Super Troopers?
Nope.
Oh man, I feel like that's a live stream waiting to happen. Although I will say it is R rated for a reason. Not that there's a lot of nudity, but there's quite a bit of cursing. So there may be a reason why maybe we keep our stuff fairly family friendly.
Right.
There
Is
may be a
Brian
reason
Cox
why
in
we
that?
don't live stream that one, but
Is Brian Cox in that movie?
yeah, and he's
Okay.
amazing in it. He's in the sequel too, I think.
Oh, that's great.
He's in a new show. Brian Cox is doing a
That's
007 challenge type show
oh,
where, like, I think certain number of contestants could win $1 million, but they have to compete and conquer these like ridiculously difficult challenges,
okay.
all sort of James Bondy like challenges, which I'm intrigued because anything 007 is always worth my time, but I don't know how that's supposed to work. And I'm legitimately curious how they're going to pull something like that off. I realize I have not been doing anything offensive. I've been building up this base, doing
You're
nothing.
you're very protected. You know what show I miss? I was thinking about this the other day. Joe's versus Pros. I miss that show. I actually really like that show because you always have guys that think that they could. Oh, if I went up against this guy, this would happen. But that was one of my. And I think Jerry Rice was actually on a couple times, and they were trying to get people to defend Jerry Rice. He was just smoking him. I think Tim
Oh,
Brown was on once or twice too. But oh man, I would love to see that show come back.
yeah, that's something that I think there's a comedian who has a bit about having like a control person at the Olympics to just remind us of all what schlubs we are. And I've always thought, like, what a funny concept, but that was the whole point of that show, is just to remind you like how inadequate you are as a person.
Well, or again, you and I talk about the armchair quarterback in a sense in terms of,
Oh yeah,
I
well
don't
we're
know
all
if you
guilty.
realize how tough it really is to. I can say everything I want about Eberflus, but if I ever coached against the guy, he would destroy me, right?
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
know. I mean, I can't even play Madden football, and even then, I might struggle a little bit too. So,
Right.
with so I mean, I think there's something that goes into that. So being able that, and again, that's why I love that pros joke, because anyone that would say, and I think they had a couple guys that won a couple, maybe a couple of contests they won, but even those retired pros got them every time. If you've seen the documentary on Netflix for American Gladiators, that's really good because they said they've only had one guy the entire time that actually gave them a tough time and then they made him a gladiator because he was that good. Just some
Wow.
regular guy off the street.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. I used to love that show as a kid. I don't think I really watched it all that much. I probably saw a rerun of it in syndication, like one of those situations, but
Right.
I remember being wildly entertained by it. Um, although your guess is as good as mine as to when in history did I actually see that, or did I see a rerun or a clip show about American Gladiators,
Right.
um, which is very, very possible. That's something they don't do anymore. Whatever happened to clip shows? Like, clip shows at the end of a season, a series, where it's like, we're not going to even film a last episode. We're just going
Oh,
to
it's like a best of.
string together a best of clip show. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Well, I'll
what
do
is
some.
that?
It'll be like Christmas memories for, family ties, and then they do, they do that.
God, Christmas
Do you think?
memories for family ties. I'd like to see it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, be careful what you wish for,
No, no,
because some of those were
no.
real bad.
Yeah, they that's not going down. Um, well, Jerry Seinfeld was saying the other day that he's got one more idea left, though I thought they closed that door on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Really?
But he said, he's like, yeah, that story isn't completely told yet. He was, how do I get out? Oh, I go to the score screen.
What are they going to tell about
Um,
how they get out of jail?
yeah, he said that it was going to be like the story, yes, like them getting out and then a brief story after they're out and how those people would interact with them once they get out of jail.
That could be really funny. You could make a whole series out of that. Like
Oh, yeah.
you wouldn't need to limit that to like a movie or anything. That would make. I hope they do a whole series because all of those actors are tremendously funny. I know Michael Richards had his thing. It was very unfortunate.
Did you see the episode on comedians in cars with comedians in cars getting coffee, where Seinfeld talked to him?
Yeah, I did. Long ago, that was when we first had Linnea. We watched that whole Comedians in Cars.
Which is amazing. But
Unbelievably good show. Why couldn't I have thought of that?
right, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm nobody.
Oh, you almost have 500 subs. You are somebody, as far as I'm
No.
concerned.
Speaking of which, let's get
Oh,
an
you better
update.
go check. Like, I think Michael Richards did a really good job. That what he did was unacceptable, but he spoke his piece. I think that needed to be done.
Hmm.
And I think he would deserve another shot if Seinfeld wind up doing even 10 episodes. We always talk about that the 10 episode season is too short, but I think for something like that, with them getting out and then, kind of closing up the story in a sense, I think that would be 10 seasons.
I think it would be
10
fine. I think there's been enough time passed now that does anybody really remember that? Like the internet never forgets, and it's going to come back out as soon as he announces anything to do with anything. But he really did take pretty significant ownership of that. And
Right.
at some point, when has somebody paid their dues? Like, I'm not going to pass judgment or offer up. I don't know the answer.
Right.
But I always kind of wonder that. Like, is there a path to redemption? Rogan talks about that, and I think it's a valid question because is your life just over at that point? I don't know.
Where was I going with it? Oh, well, I mean, when you talk about even enough time for the show Seinfeld itself,
That too.
even from the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, to me that was supposed to close the door on it. But look at my wife is watching the sequel to Sex and the City. I never thought I'd see a sequel to that. So if that could come
All
back and be
things.
successful, there's no reason why Seinfeld couldn't get 10 episodes, and who knows what they could do.
I mean the creative minds behind that show and what they've done since and what we know they're capable of. I
Right.
don't even think it's fair. Like I mean they could
Well, if you get him and Larry David together one more time like that,
it's lightning in a bottle
it's yeah, it is.
easily. I mean I think it goes without saying that that's probably it's probably something we won't see duplicated in our lifetime. I mean,
Agree.
I hate to say it. I'd love to see another sitcom of that caliber with a cast like that. I just don't. I don't think it's possible.
And there's another great example which we talked about before. That had to be my last one for the night.
Oh, you're good.
I got to be up early to have breakfast with my buddy Keith.
Oh,
His name
Keith.
his
Does
name's
Keith
gonna be
subscribe? Because
from
let's
George.
take a moment and
We will
acknowledge that
tomorrow after we have breakfast if he hasn't yet.
we have
so.
497 folks who've subscribed to our show, and that's not
I'm paying
increased
for
since
that.
we've been live streaming. So, if we're wasting our time, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please, yeah. Tell us down below, like, what are you guys doing? You shouldn't be, streaming that much.
Get off that live
You know,
stream. You
get
guys
off
are
that-
too old, and you just farting on camera, just being stupid.
That StarCraft 2 is awful.
Yeah, StarCraft 2 is
wait, were we
30
just-
years old.
We were just talking about the
Keith
Seinfeld.
Jackson.
Seinfeld. Enough
The
time.
show about nothing.
Yeah, where is it going with that?
Now, see,
Well,
let's talk graying Jedi, because this is a very gray moment.
Yeah. Well, there it goes. I was actually going to go down a decent path with that, but hey, whatever.
Derail.
It'll come to me by Sunday, because I
Hopefully.
am going to be 51 in about a month. So take that.
All right, so before we kick it off, last thoughts. Now, we don't have anything to rate out of warp cores or give a color of a lightsaber 2 rating. And we've cut some cheese, we poked some bears. I think as Packer fans and Bears fans,
Done no good for either one. But
we're exhausted by our teams right now, so we'll lay a rest there. Let us make a Lord Uther 51st birthday wish. If you had the choice between getting another season of Star Trek, any Star Trek, with the full cast, even if they have passed or anything, like they're back, they're in their prime, they're in their era even. If you could have that, one more season of any of them, or one more Luke, Leia, Han Solo, Star Wars movie on the caliber of 4, 5, and 6, which would you choose?
It's an easy answer. It's the Luke, Han, and Leia, because, like we talked about when we were doing Picard season 3 was good enough for me, and that rhymed right on time, that if they said this is it, even though Stuart wants another one, wants one more, he said, he wants one more movie, but if they were to say that's it, I would be very happy in my Star Trek heart, where I've told you multiple times, my Luke Skywalker, my Han Solo, my Princess Leia were wasted. Just absolutely wasted. More so my Luke Skywalker was wasted. But getting some of that redemption in Mandalorian, which we will talk about when we do our Mandalorian podcast, I think people are finally seeing the Luke Skywalker that they wanted to see. But I'd have to have that movie. That's now, if they never did. Oh, I'm doing a Urza Master.
Pulling an Urza Master there.
Luckily, I had seen you do this before, so I was able to fix it. Now, if I never got Picard season 3, I probably have to say I would want another Star Trek movie. But that's how good Picard was, which we've talked about so many times. But that's how good it was, Picard season 3.
Preaching to the choir. Well, with that, we have our pick of the litter of sign-offs for this live stream. So, being that this is in celebratory, what was the corporate word I heard today? Feed forward, because you should never be looking back, because you can't change the past.
Like being on a go forward.
Okay. How about Lord Uther? You choose what sign-off, and you take us out tonight.
No, my favorite sign-off is when you say, may the force be with you, and Aaron always follows up, and also with you, like we're in church. So that's my favorite sign-off, because he forgets that he's doing a podcast, and he's not back in Glen Ellen at St. Petronell. So, with that, how about I'm just going to give you a Go Bears.
Oh!
So take that.